Hello and welcome to the Friday Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who has all the answers. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, if only. But for purposes of this show, sure, why not?
I hope you do, because we have a lot of listener questions to get through today. We have 5 listener questions concerning the MLS 24 under 24, Manchester United and Daley Blind, Big Sam Allardyce's future and England's future, and why we support who we support. It's going to be a personal question that we'll get to later.
I think my answer will be longer than yours.
Also on today's show, we are going to do some Scouting Network roundup, some exciting news in the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, especially if you like American English centre-backs.
Whoever could you be referring to?
Who knows? Me. We could also be we'll also be talking about what you're going to be watching this weekend and why. Taylor, would you like to kick us off with the first listener question?
Sure. It comes from Kevin Claiborne, who asks, what are your individual starting 11s featuring only MLS players under the age of 24?
This has to be related to the MLS 24 under 24.
I say it's a safe bet.
So if you haven't heard it, I talked to Matt Doyle from MLSsoccer.com on Monday about the MLS 24 under 24. Lots of talent in there, but Kevin has asked us to each select an 11.
Yep.
Do you have yours, Taylor?
I do. Do you have yours, Daryl?
I do.
Who's your goalkeeper, I wonder?
It's Jose Gonzalez.
Correct.
It has to be, right?
It does. It definitely does.
Do you want to read your 11 to me, or do you want me to read my 11 to you?
Why don't you go first?
Okay. It is Jose Gonzalez in goal. It has to be, right?
Yep.
I've gone at right back, Alvis Powell, who did not make the 24 under 24, controversially. But he's only 22. Portland Timbers right back. Okay. My centre-back pairing is Redding and Justin Glad. Tommy Redding, Justin Glad. My left back, I've gone for Matarrita from New York City FC. Now, I haven't seen much of him play, but I know he's a Costa Rican left back who plays for the national team, and that's good enough for me. If he can do that job, then he's something special.
And he's in the TSS Scouting Network. He gets that bump for that reason.
My central midfield, I agonised over, but in the end, I've gone with Kellen Acosta and Will Trapp. I'm on both these bandwagons. I'm finding it hard to keep my foot in each of them.
You can't do the Van Damme splits.
No, I'm being forced to.
Yeah.
So Acosta and Trapp in central midfield.
Yeah.
Kakuta Mane on the left, all the pace. Jack Harrison on the right, all the skills. And my forward pairing is Kyle Larin. Matt Doyle really sold me on Kyle Larin. And his short backlift and all kinds of goals. And of course, Jordan Morris is his strike partner.
We are very similar.
What's yours then?
Except I cheated and I went 4-2.
Oh, of course.
And I went 4-2-3-1.
That's fine. No one said it had to be 4-4-2, right?
I have Jose Gonzalez. I went straight from the 24 under 24, and as far as I could tell, Keegan Rosenberry was the only right back on that list, so he is my right back.
All right.
Justin Glad. I had Walker Zimmerman as my other center back, just because every time we see him, I feel like he does something impressive. And the few times that we've seen him, every time I'm like, oh yeah, he scored a goal. Oh, he had the diving header. Well done. Matarrita as well is my left back. Kellen Acosta, Will Trapp are my defensive midfielders.
Wait, who's your other centre back?
Justin Glad.
Justin Glad. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep. And then I had Kakuta Mane, Jack Harrison, and then between them, as that more attacking midfielder, is Luciano Acosta. Because, DC United. And then Jordan Morris up top by himself.
Okay, I like it.
So only a few differences there.
I think you've got to have Kyle Larin in there.
Is that because, did you feel like that on Sunday, and now you feel like that today?
Yeah, I think Matt Doyle sold me heavily on it. So if you're interested in why Orlando City's Kyle Larin should be in your MLS 24 under 24 starting 11, he's the number one pick in the 24 under 24. I recommend go back listen to that podcast.
Did you forget that we agreed that our forward line had to be American?
Well, mine's like a nice Canadian
No brethren
American.
to the north.
I've got like a NAFTA thing going on, my forward line.
I like it.
So those are our starting 11s.
Kakuta Mane fits in well there then.
he does, right? Point Roberts, is that where he's at? Yeah. Citizenship coming soon, I've heard. Keep an eye on that.
I've heard that as well.
Second question comes from Andy Blankenship. Andy wants to know about Daley Blind at Manchester United. Remember, he was our man crush at the 2014 World Cup.
He remains my greatest specific prediction of all time.
Is that right?
Yes. Because I watched one video of Ajax where they tried to trick the players into thinking that these horrible uniforms were their new uniforms.
I saw that.
And he was one, and he was just very like rolled with it and was very chill. And I liked him just from that video. And my prediction was that he would be playing for a Premier League club by the end of the summer. And sure enough, That's what happened.
Andy asks, do you see Jose Mourinho giving Daley Blind more opportunities at left-back at Manchester United? I know he doesn't have much chance at centre-back because he just doesn't fit Jose's mould for that position. It seems like he adds more offensively with his passing ability than Luke Shaw is able to at this point. The reason I ask this, says Andy, is that because Blind seems to be the forgotten man, but most of the time he's quite effective. So, Taylor, you've seen a lot of Manchester United, obviously. Is Daley Blind going to get more opportunities at left back?
I mean, yeah, but he's got a lot of opportunities everywhere. It's not like he's just been sitting the bench this entire. I mean, he's not Matteo Darmian, for example. Like he started the season at centre back.
He did, but he's not there now. He has sort of been elbowed out of that spot, right? I think once Chris Smalling came back, it's now Smalling and Eric Bailly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then it probably means that Daley Blind is going to be one of your options at left back, maybe at defensive midfield, maybe at center back. He'll be kind of the all-around guy.
Right? I think he's like a temporary solution everywhere, but he's always like lacking the strength to play centre back, lacking the speed to play left back, and maybe lacking, again, the strength and size to be a really aggressive defensive midfielder.
Right. But here's the confusing thing that I have to say is that when Andy said this question, what I found myself wondering is like, but what is a Jose Mourinho fullback? Like, what are the kind of the telltale symptoms?
Branislav Ivanovic?
That was one of the big ones, and a big reason why is because he likes a back four with height. He likes big physical defenders who can do big physical defending.
Yeah.
And then if you
just put out a one tat in the
yeah, exactly. But then other articles I read, I read a few different ones from the beginning of the season saying who will be the right back, who will be the left back, and a lot of it was he said he wants specialists. He just wants defensive specialists.
That's not what Daley Blind is.
Well, except that it's not what Antonio Valencia is, and he is the starting right back.
Right.
So if you think about it that way, it makes me wonder if maybe Jose Mourinho is trying to do different things with this Manchester United team, and that makes me wonder. I mean, Luke Shaw is 6'1", so he does have the height advantage there.
Yeah.
But I do think that Daley Blind seems to have played his way into Jose Mourinho's good graces, into his good book, unlike Jose Mourinho's assistants who have not found their way into that notebook. So I think he'll get plenty of chances still. I honestly do.
So the way I saw it on Thursday in the Europa League, Blind didn't play, but what I read was that he was rested, and that's the only reason Rojo played left back. So it seems to me, in that case, Blind kind of is the first choice left back right now. Is that because of a Luke Shaw illness/injury?
Injury, correct. And he should be back this weekend, but I wonder if he'll be back on the bench this weekend since he's not back to full fitness. So I think they'll continue to bounce back and forth, and my guess would be that he'll use them for very specific purposes, and that's where the whole idea of he wants specialists comes in, is he'll want Daley Blind to do this specific job against this specific type of opponent, Luke Shaw to do this job against this opponent, and then he'll rotate them as necessary.
Right, so if you're playing, so the big knock against Daley Blind is not just that he's not that big and strong, he's also not that fast, right? If you're up against a pacey
made that clear.
Right winger, then maybe it has to be Luke Shaw, just someone who can keep up with that right winger.
Right.
Whereas the thing I see with Daley Blind is that he's smart. He's positionally smart and great with his passing. And honestly, I've seen him play centre-back some games and thought, oh, wow, he can absolutely do this. But then he'll come up against like a big brute who could sort of bully him and knock him around, right? Maybe midfield? Could Daley Blind be sort of the holding midfielder? Because that's how I first was introduced to Daley Blind. When I did my research for 2014 World Cup, I saw young Blind playing for Ajax in that sort of holding midfield, sort of pivot type role, and he like controlled the game with that like metronome passing. And I wonder if that's a job he could do in the Premier League.
I think so. I mean, I think the other thing with that passing is also his set piece ability. Keep in mind, he was the one delivering those corners this past weekend, and people were heading those corners home.
Yeah.
I only noted it after the fact. I should have realized it immediately that it was him, but it was only when I was watching the celebrations for Pogba's goal, and everybody walks back, and Zlatan makes a point of like walking across the field to find Daley Blind and like giving him words of encouragement.
This is against Leicester.
Yes, exactly. So I think also people seem to have identified him as a set piece taker, as a person who can play those balls, as you mentioned. So I think, again, more reason why he'll probably be in the team.
Who are United playing this weekend?
They are playing Stoke.
Ooh, United v Stoke. All right, that's not the scary Stoke, right? It's current Stoke, which is in trouble Stoke.
Yeah, but could still be the scary Stoke.
So we may see Daley Blind start that game. Will we see Wayne Rooney start this game?
I hope not.
I'll bring this up. Ouch. I'll bring this up because top of Reddit/r/soccer. Is that the correct?
Yep.
Reddit.com/r/soccer.
Reddit.com/, yeah.
Let's call it r/soccer. Right now is a video from United's 1-0 win over a Ukrainian team in the Europa League. Is it
Zoria something. Yes.
Zoria, that's it. In the Europa League. They win 1-0. It's a Ibrahimovic header from a Rooney missed shot, right? All that's good. In the 87th minute, there's a clip that's top of Reddit right now, which is Zlatan like pressing the Ukrainian defence as they have the ball and calling Rooney with him, and Rooney doesn't go, and then sort of I think the Ukrainian team circulates possession, eventually breaks through, and you see Zlatan getting really angry and waving his arms around.
I think that's where
or showing some frustration.
But I think that's more Zlatan than it is anything else.
Right.
Yeah. I think he's justified in his frustration, but I don't think that's where I think it's a little bit overblown, the reaction, is that I don't think he, like the way it was initially described is that he like waves his fists at the heavens and screams, and it's just more like he does the exasperated like.
It's not like he slaps out Rooney's hairpieces.
No,
right?
No, exactly.
The plugs come out.
Exactly.
But so I sort of took issue with this video because it just seemed to be the assumption is because Zlatan is the one that tried to press and Zlatan's the one that's annoyed that Wayne Rooney's definitely wrong because he didn't do what Zlatan said. Right. Whereas if you look at the rest of the team, and this is my case for this, I've forgotten who's on the right. I don't know if Lingard's still out there. I think maybe not. I'm not sure who was the right winger.
I believe it was Rashford.
Okay, Rashford doesn't go either. No one else presses. Only Zlatan presses. And to me, that puts you in the minority of one, which makes you the crazy one.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And also, it's 1-0. It's the 87th minute. Maybe the instruction is not, Man United aren't a pressing team. Jose Mourinho isn't a pressing coach. I wouldn't be surprised if they were told, hold the halfway line, don't go chasing waterfalls. And then Zlatan, who was breaking instructions, everybody else who was doing the right thing.
Yeah, but see, what you're doing now is you're saying you wouldn't be surprised with this, and then you're arguing it from that perspective as though that's actually what was the case. Whereas we don't really know. We don't know what they were instructed. It may well be that they were told to put the center back under pressure and cut off options through the middle, and that's what Zlatan was trying to do. That's what he expected Wayne Rooney to do.
Yeah.
I'll say this, that the angle that Zlatan takes, he cuts off a pass to the left back, so the only pass is to that midfielder, or the guy has to kick it long.
Right.
But because Rooney, not Mourinho, that would be very illegal. Because Rooney hasn't
quite far
stepped,
out of his technical area there.
Yeah, it's true. Because Rooney hasn't stepped on that midfielder, he has time to settle the ball and then play it out to that left back, and now you can distribute and move the ball forward. So I can see, even if it isn't necessarily what they're supposed to be doing, you can see that Zlatan has identified an opportunity, and I think correctly so, stepped and cut off angles, and if Rooney had done so as well, United probably win that ball back.
All right, so we're going to have to agree to disagree. Because I don't think Zlatan always has to be right just because I am Zlatan.
Oh, no, I agree with you. And I think, and that's why I say I don't think it's as big of a deal, only because I think if Zlatan were really angry, he would make that clear. I think that's just more of Zlatan's general body language demeanor of like, this could have been better. But really quickly I'll say, and I know we've talked about Man United a lot, so we'll move it on. That's not the reason why I say I hope Rooney isn't starting. It's because of other sequences like the one we watched when they're on the counter and it's swift passing and it's good, and then they play it to Rooney and he hits the ball 10 yards ahead and 40 yards wide.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of lack of sharpness. The goal you mentioned where he has
the assist he has?
An easy volley that he hits into the floor and bounces to Zlatan's head. Again, it's just a lack of sharpness, and it's clearly a lack of confidence where he's overthinking everything.
I feel like I'm going to be the last man in the world defending Wayne Rooney, and it may be because I'm an England fan.
It'll be you and Wayne Rooney defending Wayne Rooney.
And no longer Sam Allardyce, who was defending him. So our next question comes from Chris Bentley. Chris wants to know, with the news of Sam's departure, condolences to Daryl. We've talked about Allardyce the last couple of shows. You can go back and find our Big Sam, Big Emergency pod. Chris wants to know, Chris says, let's play a game, which is a very scary thing to say. Is that from Saw?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
All right, let's play a game. Maybe we should hack Saw off to get the key. Let's play a game. What is an ideal England manager now that Sam Allardyce is gone? What type of personality do they have? Are they a tactician or are they a motivator? Are they a traditionalist or are they a pragmatist? So I feel like it's quite easy to start naming names about who we want to be England coach, but let's maybe sketch it out. What does England actually need right now in a coach when they appoint the next man?
Well, here's the thing is that I have a name that I want to say. Okay? But I'm going to tell you why before I tell you that man's name. Okay? And I want you to tell me if you think this is a fair description of England as a national team, as a player pool, talent-wise.
Okay.
So, I think we agreed from the Sam Allardyce conversations we've had that they needed a pragmatic approach, right?
Yeah.
That you need someone who knows what he has.
Well, someone who looks at weaknesses in the opposition and looks at strengths that you have and tries to fit those two together like a match-winning jigsaw.
And I think we would both agree that England, on the whole, is probably not going to attract the biggest talent, which, obviously you're not attracting talent, but you know what I mean? That you have...
As a coach, you mean?
Well, just in terms of the player pool you have.
Have you seen the paychecks they can send?
No, but you know what I mean? That you're in terms of the biggest talent available to an England manager, Spain has more talent, Germany has more talent, Italy has more talent.
The word attract is what confused me. You mean you don't have the best talent to choose from?
Because mine is an international team coach. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
He is a coach, or was a coach, for a university that didn't get the best players, so it has to play within his system. And I think a system that would work very well for England is high tempo, high pressure, put them under, work really hard, believe in the coach. You need someone who relates to the players. They need Shaka Smart.
Shaka Smart.
Former VCU basketball coach, currently at Texas.
Yeah.
But and I mean that as a joke, but I also mean it seriously in terms of that's what I think they need as a coach. I think they need a young coach who can relate to the players, who can do goofy drills and be involved in the team, but also be aware of pop culture and be in on Vines. Whereas, Roy Hodgson is probably looking at people filming stuff like, what is that happening? Like, I think you need someone who can relate.
Friends do that now?
But has the high energy and that sort of demeanor to really get the results. That's what I think they need.
So I don't think they should hire a college basketball coach, much as I have love for Shaka Smart here in Richmond.
Yeah.
I do think you're onto something in terms of Shaka Smart had a system, right? He had this tactical havoc system, which is essentially a high press, right? I think what you think of the England teams of the last few years, it's been very rare that you've said, this is the style of football that England play, right? Mm-hmm. Going into the Euros, you couldn't say, oh, they play this crazy high-pressing system. They do this. Like you could with, say, Chile for the last few tournaments.
I mean, you couldn't even say, with certainty who's going to go where. Are they going to play Vardy up top? Are they going to play him out wide? Is it going to be a front two? Who's going to play? It was a lot of question marks going into a tournament other than Wayne Rooney's going to play deep.
Speaking of jigsaws earlier, I'm going to extend my metaphor. Picking the England team recently has been like having all these really expensive jigsaw pieces, and you've got to complete the picture, but none of them actually, they don't all fit together to complete a whole picture, so you're jamming things together, and it never quite works. That's why sometimes Vardy's a forward, sometimes Vardy's on the right wing, and sometimes Rooney's playing midfield, and you're just trying to crush everybody in there, right? So I think I've been saying this for something like 10 years, that what I would love in an England coach is someone who's like, okay, this is the system, this is the style we're going to play. I think it would be good if it was like a very modern, almost German type, high pressing type system, and they say, this is what we're doing, I'm going to pick players that do this, right? Yeah. So that's what I would say. It's got to be, God, Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp would be a great England coach.
That's the one I would say. Because I think he also meets, and I really wasn't kidding with it. If you've never seen Shaka do that, I think it's called the Iron Man, where he takes the charge, hits the layup, runs all over the court, and that's how he gets the team hyped up for a warm-up. That's what Jurgen Klopp does. He gets his team hyped, he gets his team to believe in him. He clearly has good rapport, but he's not afraid to be feisty. That's the type of mentality I think you need as a national team manager if you want to bring about change.
And to be clear, Liverpool fans, and just general listeners, we know that this isn't realistic, right? We know that Jurgen Klopp can't be hired away from Liverpool to be the England coach.
I mean, he could be, but he won't be.
Right, he won't be, right? That's not going to happen. But I think it's a good sort of a good template for the type of coach that England could do with, relatively young, new ideas, energy, fresh energy. I think that would be exciting. Maybe the downside, now we're getting in the weeds on this, the downside is, look how long it's taken Jurgen Klopp to work with those Liverpool players and get that going. I'm not sure if you're not working with players week in, week out, you can put into effect this sort of very detailed pressing system.
Right. I agree. I think what it would probably be, so say if we stuck with Jurgen Klopp for a second, remember when he was brought in mid-season, that you could, within the first couple games, see signs of what he was trying to do and that the players were responding.
Yeah.
So I think he is capable of getting change and getting people to be on the same page in that short window. But I think part of that is also why you need a manager that can relate to the players and that the players respect. Because if you, for example, if you had Big Sam come back, very unlikely situation, but you know what I mean? Or any other manager right now, Harry Redknapp, for example. If Harry Redknapp came in, Daryl just looked so sad and all the blood drained from his face. I don't think he has that level of respect. So when Harry starts talking about, we're going to do this gegenpress, it's nah, it's not going to be a thing that we're going to be doing. But Jurgen Klopp has that level of respect that I think everybody would be sitting there yep, we're doing this, I'm listening, I'm taking notes, I'm on it. And I think he also wouldn't be afraid to, if you have a player who can't step up or can't figure it out, to drop that player in favor of somebody who can.
Agree, because the system comes first, right? The team is the star type thing.
Exactly.
Maybe it should be Jason Christ.
Yep.
So another idea I sort of have is, I feel like the national team, because that thing we're talking about where you don't have that much time with the players to implement a system, maybe the idea is that the national team should take the best of what's happening with clubs, right? But if you look at England right now, there is a little mini tactical revolution going on where Klopp is doing his thing at high tempo thing at Liverpool, Pochettino's doing a high tempo thing at Spurs, Guardiola at Manchester City. Suddenly the seeds are there for that style of play. The best English players are playing that style, so they could be then implemented into the England team. There's a chance that you can take advantage of that.
I mean, we've talked Klopp. Pochettino's the other one who, if you were going to stick with a player, with a manager who isn't English, obviously, but is familiar with the English system.
Yeah.
Pochettino's a pretty good one.
Yeah, and I guess there's a whole other argument about whether the England manager should be English, but I guess Chris's question is more about the style of coach, right? I feel like we've answered it.
I feel like we have, but we have another Sam Allardyce-related question coming from Michael Fisk. He was just wondering about Big Sam's future. There seems to be a few managerial jobs that open up at the close of each season, each year. Would a club desperate to avoid relegation next season roll the Allardyce? Oh, and then he says, "Boo, I know," on the former England boss.
I like that joke.
Or is his reputation so tarnished now that people wouldn't be interested?
Right now, yes. If someone hired him tomorrow, it would be kind of a PR disaster. Give it a year. Give it till Christmas when Sunderland are like still fighting relegation or Stoke are fighting relegation. I don't know, because there's this idea that all right, Sam Allardyce had to go for meeting with that fake Far Eastern firm and suggesting that ways around third-party ownership. Yeah. The subsequent revelations, like Tommy Wright taking a £5,000 bung, right, all that, are kind of worse, right? The other allegations against the other people seem to be much, much worse, but they're not the England manager, so they weren't the lead story. So he may not look as bad a few months from now when everybody else is revealed to be doing very, very dodgy things.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I think he goes elsewhere for like a half season or a season. That would be my guess. I think he definitely...
An English manager coach somewhere other than England?
Yeah, it's happened every now and then.
Is this the 1910s?
I mean, yeah, it could happen.
The Misters. Actually, just on a side note, Rory Smith, you know, the Times, he's on the podcast and he's a writer. He's written a book called The Misters about like the early British soccer people who like went out and taught the world soccer. That I'm really interested to read. Sorry, that just came to mind.
No. But I think I could see that. I mean, it is Big Sam. He does love Ibiza. We've seen the video of him dancing to Rihanna. I think it was in Ibiza.
It's Ibiza.
I know. I felt very weird doing that one. That's the joke, right? About people who did a semester abroad in Barcelona, and now that's how they say it all the time. And so I could see him going to, say, the Middle East, where he has the reputation as the England manager and a Premier League manager and make some money. I could see him going to Turkey, where they, again, I think tend to be attracted to big-name coaches, whether or not they're the best fit for the club.
Does his sort of, the scandal affect him there, though? Like, would a Middle Eastern club or a Turkish club not be like, "Whoa, we don't want to touch that right now"?
I mean, maybe, but by the same token... who is the man? I am tired. Apparently, who is the Spanish man? Luis Aragonés, who has a kind of checkered history when it comes to race relations. He was welcomed at Fenerbahce, so I mean, they do. I mean, Frank Rijkaard similarly has maybe some bad blood with a few different clubs. Welcome to Galatasaray. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a history there. So yeah, I think he could do well in Turkey.
So go to there's also the thing of would you move to Turkey right now with all the Erdogan stuff going on?
That's the bigger thing,
right?
That's a you got that point there. Maybe somewhere else.
Nigel de Jong did though. I was surprised by that. If I was Nigel de Jong, I would have been like, oh, maybe wait 6 months and see what happens.
Money's money. But I think all I'm getting at is that I think he needs he needs a little bit of a gap for the kind of recency to die down. Like, I don't think he could go somewhere in, say, January, even though that would make sense. But I think he needs...
how desperate Stoke is.
He needs it to die down a little bit, and I think he needs the narrative to change. So it needs to be like, oh, he went to Turkey and challenged himself, or oh, he went and won the Qatar Stars League. And even if it's, still the Qatar Stars League, it's still he's gone away and done something, and it kind of takes away that level of like, oh, he lost the England job, and he gave it all away, and everybody would kill to have that job, and he didn't value it enough. If he comes back a little while later, then I think he comes back to a Premier League club.
All right, two words for you. 2 club names. LAFC, Minnesota United.
Yeah.
Big Sam in Big MLS.
I don't think that would be a good idea at all.
Why not? I kind of say jokingly just because it crosses our two worlds. Right?
Well, why do you think do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea?
No, I just think it'd be interesting. It'd be newsworthy, put it that way.
I think it would be a bad idea because if he takes a job outside of England, it needs to be something that he can handle. It needs to be something that he can go in and understand and know how it works. Yeah. Major League Soccer is not a thing that quote-unquote outsiders can come in and just totally get their heads around and know how it works.
Hey, if you're looking for someone who can figure out ways around a complex set of rules,
this is true.
Maybe Big Sam's a perfect MLS coach.
But I mean, wouldn't that be like tragic Big Sam that he's like, oh, I go to MLS, I'll win that, it's no problem. And he goes in, he's like, all right, we're going to buy this guy and this guy, and we're going to get this guy. And they're like, no, we're not. There's a salary cap.
Like, how do LAFC have 12 DPs?
He would definitely be like, what it is, we don't call them DPs. We call them something else. Then we pay him a bunch of money. No one's ever tried that.
They're called big players. Sam's big players.
I do think that's a strange benefit but limitation to Major League Soccer that I do think it's difficult to really get your head around.
Oh yeah,
quickly.
Ask Ruud Gullit. Ruud Gullit was flabbergasted.
And Owen Coyle as well, another one who didn't really work out that sojourn to Texas. So I think it wouldn't be a very good move for him just in terms of I think it's not a thing where he can go have guaranteed success and then bounce back to a Premier League gig.
Time is a great healer of reputations, especially when relegation is threatening you
the
Premier League. Right?
Very true.
All right, final question today, Taylor, is kind of a personal one from Mark Bajowski.
Yep.
Okay, you ready for this? Mark says, hey guys, so I've been a loyal listener to the show for almost 2 years now, but I know you guys have been at this for a while. Started in 2009, according to the TSS Crest. And there are many shows I've missed in that time. This means I've probably missed some foundational Daryl Grove and Taylor Rockwell soccer biographical information. My guess is that there are plenty of new listeners who are in the same boat. I realise Daryl is a Wolves fan and is fairly neutral in the Premier League, and Taylor is a Manchester United fan. But the question is, how did all this come about? Daryl is British, and so I'm guessing that Wolves support is fairly geographical, but are there any other reasons? Taylor, how did you come to be a Manchester United fan?
All right. Well, Mark has a couple follow-up questions that to me indicate that the idea of being a fan before Major League Soccer existed is not something that he's considered. Because he had the same question about, what are the highlight clips that you watched when you were growing up?
Yeah.
And I was like, we just barely had the internet when I was growing up.
Well, take us back to those days.
Sure.
Before, when we barely had the internet, when AOL CDs were everywhere. How did you come to be a Manchester United fan?
I came to be, I would say, a very peripheral Manchester United fan at the age of 12 by going to a Richmond Kickers soccer camp.
Okay.
And I've told this story before in a very general way, which is that one of the counselors there was a Man United fan, and he was very influential. And so,
is this the long version? Are we going to have to submit this podcast to the moth?
No, basically the short, I guess the still kind of long but still kind of short version is that I finally last night messaged Richmond Kickers, now head coach, then player, Lee Calishaw, because he was working that camp. And I said, who would have been a Manchester United fan during that time? Who's English and would have been a Manchester United fan?
Oh, you're trying to figure out who this coach was that made you a Man United fan.
And we narrowed it down to a couple different guys. John Hall is not a Manchester United fan, but he does currently work with Beach FC. So just on the off chance that he hears this, hi, John. But the other one is Neil Ryan is his name, and that's the gentleman. I forgot his name, but that's who it was. Neil Ryan played for the Kickers for 9 times, but his father was a Manchester United player. So it was him.
Jimmy Ryan.
Yes, Jimmy Ryan. So he would have. So basically, it was him talking about Manchester United and being a very good counselor for that week. Was the first person to introduce me to the name Manchester United.
How did he do it then?
I just remember.
Was he hey, support Man United or take 5 laps? You choose.
I really, honestly, I just remember bits and pieces here of remember the goal reference that I always make where it's the manager kicks the ball and Santi can't outrun the ball.
Yeah.
And that's just, John Hall did the same thing where he was if you want to play midfield for me, you got to be fast. You got to be Giggs-like. I remember those little references of I don't know what that means.
So
you'd start to get little references in there. But it was mostly because at the time, outside of the Kickers...
Younger listeners, Giggs used to be really fast.
Yeah, it's true. But at the time, there's no MLS. All there was the Richmond Kickers. And so... I kind of learned about Manchester United that way. And again, this is all random, but one of my first coaches, one of his trivia questions for the entire season was, I was born in Jersey. Where is that? But a time when I could not use the internet because I was 11, I had no idea where it was. It took me an entire season to figure out that it was an island. So it was one of those where you kind of hear these names and they become almost mythical figures. And then when you start to see them once you're older, you make those connections and it all kind of ties together. So
that's where the seeds of your United fandom come from. Mm-hmm. All right. Mine is sort of...
I can't lie, 1999 helped solidify that fandom, I must admit.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the glory never stopped rolling until Sir Alex Ferguson left.
Yeah.
My Wolves fandom, it is geographical, as Mark suggested, right? Where I'm from is... it's basically Villa, Wolves, Albion, some Birmingham City. Right, I'm slightly away from the main city. That's where more of the Birmingham fans are. So it is geographical, but it's mostly family. Right, I've got just a family of Wolves fans, like my brother, my dad, his dad, all that sort of stuff. And So I wanted to say that my dad started taking me to games. He didn't, because he stopped going to soccer matches when the crowd started swearing.
Really?
He said, I'm not going there. Too much bad language. He's proper like old principal guy, yeah. But my brother started taking me, when I was a teenager, started taking me to the Wolves to watch Wolves games. So it's kind of like a family thing, right? So it's like me and my older brother watching Wolves.
Did you say to the Wolves?
Yeah, that's what they say, going up the Wolves.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've just realised that that's weird, but yeah, that's what we say.
No, it's more so because I feel like a lot of people would say, like, oh, it's the Wolverhampton Wolves. And so to hear you say the Wolves for a moment, I was like, wait, is that actually what it is? Have I been ridiculing people all this time for no reason?
Well, so it's a weird thing where that means, like, going to the stadium.
Yeah.
Like, no one says you're going to Molineux. You're saying you're going to the Wolves.
Right. And I will say...
Maybe just no one knows how to pronounce Molineux.
That's also probably a big part of it. Molineux. Yeah. But I will also say that I think that I can totally understand why that would be... Like, why I say mine is more of like a peripheral memory from when I was 12 versus yours would be much more concrete.
Yeah.
Because I would say the first time I was ever in a European stadium, and actually I found the video posted from the game, which we can share in the show notes if you want.
I would love to.
Of what made me a Galatasaray.
Oh, I'm doing the show notes. You have to give it to me.
Okay, I can do that. But it's what made me a Galatasaray fan. And it's like at their old stadium, you can see the fans bouncing and hanging off the second tier and singing this crazy loud song. And like being in that stadium, it definitely also makes it a much more personal, like lasting. Right. Yeah, I want to do this forever. This is awesome.
Did you bounce?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had no choice. The stadium was literally bouncing. It was a very old stadium.
Kind of like RFK?
Yeah. You will see in the video. It's like, oh, that is definitely an old stadium.
Well, this gets us to the second part of Mark's question. His follow-up question was, who were your football idols growing up? Who were the guys you watched highlights of every day, the first jersey you owned, etc.? So the highlights thing, YouTube didn't really come around until 2006 or so. I was growing up, I didn't have highlights to watch every day.
Was YouTube not till 2006? That's
I mean, it got big in 2006. Yeah, 2005, 6.
I would say, I think when I first had a computer...
I grew up in the mid-90s, right? So there was no YouTube.
I think I got a computer when I went to high school, like a desktop, like an old beat-up desktop.
Yeah.
Maybe when I was in high school, maybe a little bit before. But I remember using Napster and Kazaa and those types of programs to download clips.
Wait, statute of limitations probably good on that.
I got banned from Napster by Dr. Dre, not Metallica. Yeah, I got the D-ban, as it was called. But I would download clips of Beckham. That was the one for me from that high school era of, shaved head Beckham and bent like Beckham.
So he was your first idol?
I'd say so, actually, but my first idol was a person who I didn't really ever see play definitely not in the flesh, but also not even on TV, and it was George Weah. And that's because of FIFA video games. FIFA 95 will do that for you.
So this would be when he was more or less World Player of the Year, right? Yep. Maybe that year. I think 95 George Weah was World Player of the Year. And I remember playing one of those FIFA games where Weah was like, he would just dribble around people for fun. And I think he scored that goal round about that time as well. That goal where he dribbles the length of the field.
And so weirdly, to answer Mark's question, a lot of like my idols were players that I didn't know at all and like never watched clips of. I knew them from FIFA. So for example,
you could fill in the gaps in your head, right? Of how great they were. That's the thing.
Costa Curta. I don't think I've ever seen a game of his, but I know that name. But the player,
it's a badass centre back.
The other one who stuck out from that iteration of FIFA and stuck out for most of his career was Paolo Maldini. He was like a 95 in that game. And I remember being like, this Maldini guy is really good. And I was correct.
And so weird that you probably did then get to watch him towards the end of his career, right? When there's much more soccer on TV.
Exactly.
He played till he was 40, right?
But I'd say if I was going idols, I would probably say Jeff Agus was the other one, and David Beckham. Those are the ones that I remember like really identifying with.
So mine was, weirdly, Matt Le Tissier.
Yeah.
So this was like the early Premier League era. Matt Le Tissier playing for Southampton, like really sort of being the guy that keeps them up every year and pulling off outrageously good sort of flicks overheads and volleys from distance and really crazy goals. I think once a year I talk about Matt Le Tissier in a way that that makes me get all emotional.
Do you know why I love Matt Le Tissier?
No.
It's a story you told me. Isn't it about how everybody would make fun of him because he read the newspaper? Or was that Graham Lasso?
I think it was Graham Lasso.
Oh, okay, never mind. Then I hate Matt Le Tissier. I knew there was a "la" in there. Okay. Then that makes me like Graham Lasso. I don't like Matt Le Tissier.
Lasso got made fun of for reading The Guardian and for having, like, I think he studied economics or something. But Le Tissier is like this flair English player that you could watch you could tune in just to watch Southampton play whoever they were playing in case Matt Le Tissier did something crazy, right? And so you've played soccer with me a lot. I'm sort of big centre-back, head it away, that kind of thing. There was a period when I was like 14, all I wanted to do was flick the ball over people's heads. Did not go well for me.
Yes, I can imagine. Is that why you still like a back heel?
No, not really. But
you just like a back heel?
I just like a back heel, yeah. That's more of a Dragan Stojkovic thing.
That makes sense. I'm still waiting for you to say your other idol.
My other idol? Yeah. Oh, Paul McGrath also.
Okay, that's one. I was thinking another Paul.
Steve Bull?
I was thinking another Paul.
Because Steve Bull was the Paul... I don't know who you mean.
Gascoigne.
Paul Gascoigne. Yeah, well... Yeah, I guess, because he was the big sort of England celebrity. My soccer fandom really starts in 1990 with that World Cup. But I don't think I understood soccer enough to watch Gazza play, if you know what I mean.
I think it's...
I wasn't really conscious of what he was doing that was so great. It was more that he was this crazy character.
But I think it's also because in my mind, you tend to avoid like a lot of tropes of traditional England fans where they're very annoyed by this or angry by that and they react to the papers a lot. I feel like you tend to try to see the other side of the argument, as you did earlier with the Wayne Rooney thing.
Adult Daryl does.
Yeah, right? Well, no, but even with that, I feel like you still have this sort of like sad reverence for Paul Gascoigne that the entire country seems to also share.
Yeah.
Where it's like when you talk about him, you talk about this like fallen angel almost, or like this tragic figure. And it's with that I think it stands out in my mind that it would be like such an influential figure.
Because he gave us moments. He gave us the 1990 World Cup, which like I said is where I was like, okay, soccer's for me. And he gave us Euro 96. He gave us a flick over the head goal against Scotland. He lifted it over Colin Hendry's head and then volleyed it home. England beat Scotland 2-1 at Wembley at Euro 96. There were these moments of England being good that are very Paul Gascoigne-centric and have arguably never come back since then.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a long time ago as well.
Yes. But now that you reminded me of creative, very talented midfielders, I have to say the other one that I will always remember from 1996 and 1997 and onwards, obviously, is Marco Echeverri. That's the other big one.
Oh, for DC.
The curly mullet. My first awareness of like South American soccer as a whole, because he was Bolivian, like outside of Brazil and Argentina. Yeah, and then for the famous quote, that ball had eyes for the ball he played. It was like a 60-yard through ball that split 5 guys. It's amazing. All
right, final part of Mark's question. First jersey you owned with the player's name on it.
Oof.
I'll tell you mine while you think. Mine, weirdly, is Josie Altidore. Because I never had one until...
that's the thing.
Until very recently.
I would say the only one... Like, I had ones that were given to me by, like, uncles who were traveling, which didn't mean as much. I'd say the first one that I ever purchased for myself was Francesco Totti. It was a Roma.
Nice. Recently turned 40. Did you see that?
Yeah, and still looks 22. It was one of the old school Roma Kappa jerseys that were like 3/4 length and fit tight. And it looked awesome. And the day that I visited, the first time I ever visited out of the country, I landed in Rome, was the day that Roma won Serie A for the first time in like 40 years. So it's kind of a big event, and that made me like him quite a bit.
That reminds me, actually, the first jersey I had with the player's name on it was a Leonardo Milan jersey that was fake.
Wow.
that I bought in Greece. It was in Falaraki, I think.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So,
fake jerseys.
Mark, I hope you enjoyed my semi-self-indulgent rants and Daryl's succinct answers.
That was a little self-indulgent. Oh, speaking of, nearly didn't mention this. We have relaunched Phenomenal.
Speaking of self-indulgence.
The newsletter. So the deal was we launched Phenomenal, our weekly newsletter.
The daily thing comes later.
Yeah. To promote the Total Soccer Scouting Network by giving the reports in the newsletter, right? But now we get we'd have to send 5 newsletters a day to keep on top of it. Scouting Network has got bigger than we ever imagined it could be. So now it's all in the show, right? So the newsletter became kind of redundant. But instead, we've relaunched it as it's going to be a look behind the scenes of the Total Soccer Show. So if you subscribe to Phenomenal at totalsoccershow.com/phenom, PHENOM, you'll be in on some of the secrets behind the scenes at TSS. You can see what we're up to and what's coming soon on TSS.
And you know what my first thought was when we made this decision?
What's that?
I am never sleeping in this office ever again. Because we've both done that on different occasions.
In case you wake up with me taking a photo.
Pretty much. So there's that, yeah.
You just got to barricade the door. That's what you do.
Yeah, sure.
All right, Tyler.
Yeah.
Today's show is sponsored by FUCHI, the good people at FUCHI, which I've been told sounds like Fuji when I say it. So just worth clearing up that it's spelled FUTCHI, FUCHI, the engineered soccer rebounder.
And the game that makes Taylor overthink on a consistent basis.
So we took our FUCHI net out to, what's it called?
The Carillon.
The Carillon here in Richmond on a sort of beautiful but sort of rainy day.
Sort of beautiful in the sense that, again, the last few times we played FUCHI, it was 95 degrees.
Yeah.
And yesterday it was like a balmy 82.
Yeah, it was a lot nicer, right?
And with pure humidity, worth noting, but yeah.
But we recorded ourselves playing a game of FUCHI, and we've been talking about doing a variation. The variation we did was headers only. Headers only. We can't tell you who won this game of FUCHI, we can tell you that the video is in the show notes. Look at the show notes, click the link, or go to youtube.com/TotalSoccerShow, and you'll see Daryl versus Taylor in a FUCHI battle, headers only.
I wonder if it's indicative of who won by the amount of energy being put in by one side of this conversation versus the other.
Maybe you just have a great poker face.
That could be. I don't.
Maybe your poker face is better than your headers.
I used to think I did when I was going to be a professional poker player until I lost like 6 games in a row. And I was like,
Wait, what?
Yeah, maybe you avoided that, but I feel like when I was in college, everyone, and maybe everyone does, maybe everyone has the Led Zeppelin phase and everyone has the I'm going to play professional poker phase.
Are they related?
I don't think so. I think it's like everybody gets into poker at some point, but
yeah.
That was when like the World Series of Poker had really taken off, and I was super going to do it because I thought I was good, which meant that one game I got dealt very good cards consistently, and then I won, and I was like, ha, I can do this. I couldn't do that. I have a terrible poker face.
Yeah, poker's hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all skillful and whatnot.
FUCHI, also skillful.
Yeah.
So once again, you can find that video in the show notes. Also, if you're going to buy a FUCHI rebounder and get $70 off, you need to do it before the end of September. September ends basically tonight.
Right.
So if you're listening to this, go to www.playfuchi.com, use the coupon code TOTALSOCCERBONUS, all one word, at checkout. You'll get $70 off. We've been told this deal expires at the end of September. Mm-hmm. But if you're listening to this and it's maybe Saturday or Sunday, just try it.
Yeah,
right?
Try that code.
Because you know sometimes coupons still work over the weekend.
I do know that.
Yeah, so maybe give it a go if it's Saturday, Sunday. If you're getting this like deep into October, you're out of luck. So it's www.playfuchi.com, FUTCHI.
Yep.
Total Soccer Bonus is the coupon to get $70 off the FUCHI Rebounder. This is pretty much your final chance to do so.
There we are.
Thank you to FUCHI for sponsoring today's episode of the Total Soccer Show.
Thank you to Daryl Grove for editing the lovely FUCHI video that we have since put out on YouTube, as you mentioned.
It's pretty funny, right?
I
kind of enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Up next, what are you watching this weekend? That's the question we put out on Twitter, Taylor, and we got many, many, many answers.
We sure did.
But we have synthesized them into basically a weekend guide of what to watch this weekend and why.
Indeed.
What was the main thing people were watching?
Spurs v City.
That's what it
many people responded. Many people watching Spurs v Man City.
Sunday morning?
You got it. This, That, and the Third is watching it because 2 unbeaten EPL teams battle for early season claim to be the best in England.
Ooh, Man United out of that race now.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Leahy is watching it because Guinness at 9 a.m.
Always a good idea.
I don't think doctors advise that, but okay.
I just said always a good idea, and I am a beer doctor. Ian Johnson is watching because high press versus playing out of the back. What could possibly go wrong?
Hashtag come on you Spurs. Lucas Dasmuller says, I support Spurs and 1v2 should be a lot of fun to watch. All right, I guess we'll have to be talking about Spurs v City on Monday. I can't see that not being a good game, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be good. We had a couple other people mention the Man United Stoke game that we talked about.
Yep.
We also had a few people tweet in regarding Swansea v Liverpool.
Yes.
Andrew Eggleton, because I'm either optimistic or masochistic, also staying positive through the manager rumors, and because I love setting an alarm on Saturday morning.
So I'm guessing Andrew is a Swansea fan.
Yeah.
Manager rumors are what? Guidolin may be out and Mr. Robert Bradley may be on his way in?
Craig Turner also tweeted in to say, I support the Reds. But also, and Bob Bradley is why I'm watching this.
So he can hope that Liverpool beat Swansea so that he gets 3 points for Liverpool.
I like this.
And Bob Bradley nears a Premier League manager's chair.
I like this plan.
Only a rumour at this point, right? Or was it actually reported that Bradley met with Swansea owners?
I think it was reported that he met with Swansea owners, but that could still be a rumour.
Rumour-ported?
Yeah.
Or re-rumoured.
Yep.
Mike Bate says he is sleeping in, so not setting an alarm, and missing the games on Saturday to prepare for the 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. games on Sunday. Hashtag West Coast problems.
One slightly closer to home, albeit being played in another state. Louisville City versus the Richmond Kickers.
Hey.
Rob S. says he will
be at Slugger Field.
He will be at Slugger Field Sunday night. Why? Because of USL playoffs. On the flip side of that would be the River City Red Army, who will be watching Richmond v. Louisville because RVA is red. Ben Bromley also watching that one. He says Washington Spirit versus Chicago Red Stars in NWSL on Friday. DC United versus Toronto FC on Saturday. Kickers v. Louisville Sunday because I want to support all levels of soccer in America.
Well, then, Ben, we will see you at Dory Park at 3 p.m. for our CVSA game.
And my earlier game at 9 a.m. at at Bryant Park. Whenever you're there, Ben, we'll appreciate it. But also a reminder, if you're a USL fan, if you're interested in USL playoffs, those playoffs being streamed for free on YouTube.
Yes. Oh, cool. Very, very quick preview. Hugh Roberts for the Richmond Kickers. Probably our favourite player this year, right? Plays centre-back for the Richmond Kickers. Yeah. Okay, my favourite player.
Especially once we notice the hand gestures.
Yeah.
The thumbs up throughout the game.
Every time he receives a good pass, thumbs up, yeah. Versus Chandler Hoffman, Louisville's like really dangerous big striker. So yeah, that's going to be the battle. Roberts v. Hoffman. Elsewhere in the NWSL playoffs, we got quite a few tweets, right? Ben mentioned Washington Spirit versus Chicago Red Stars tonight. Vikas Menderita is excited about the Spirit playoff game today. Shame I can't make it to the Plex. Eric W says he's watching the best soccer team in America. Our CVSA team? No, parentheses, Portland Thorns versus Western New York Flash in the other NWSL playoff. It's the semi-finals.
Moving over to Europe.
Yeah.
Leverkusen v. Dortmund. Doc Savage watching because Pulisic. And almost every Dortmund game so far has been exciting.
I love that because Pulisic is just enough of a reason now in America.
Soccer Observations sort of echoes that sentiment, but adds Chicharito, saying Chicharito v. Pulisic. Let's see if we have a CONCACAF jersey swap.
We shall see. CCS Dan is also watching more of just a general Dortmund fan, it seems. Dortmund fan, not Dortmund Dan.
Yeah.
He's watching to see, can Dortmund keep pace with Bayern Munich? We forget this, right? We're all excited about Pulisic's assists or whatever. I think been credited with the assist against Real Madrid. It's also about the title race. It's about Dortmund v Bayern in the Bundesliga title race.
Right. Yeah. Is that all we have, though, to look forward to in the Bundesliga?
No, there's also Hertha Berlin are playing Hamburg. John Brooks is apparently going to be back from his injury, which means it's John Brooks versus Bobby Wood. You get to see America's best centre-back against one of America's best strikers.
Right.
Brooks v. Wood.
And Hamburg with a new manager, which means who's your teen man crush?
Alan Halilovic.
There it is.
Yeah, weirdly excluded by the former coach. May get his shot with the new coach. Yeah, Hertha v. Hamburg. Brooks v. Wood.
Travis Clark, friend of the show, Travis Clark, says North Carolina v. Syracuse because it's my job.
Oh, I remember this tweet. You got a lot of responses.
It did.
Like, a lot of people would like to work for Top Draw Soccer, Travis. A lot of people were like, yeah, poor you.
Yes, but speaking of Travis also followed up regarding Isaiah Young. Can you remind listeners of young Isaiah Young?
Yes, so Laken Brown is scouting Isaiah Young for the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network and said that basically he was committed to Wake Forest, disappeared, like didn't follow through with that, tried to go pro in the summer and has sort of not been heard of since. So we don't know what's going on with Isaiah Young. We put a sort of TDS APB out to Travis, right? Top Draw Soccer APB. I don't know what APB stands for.
All Points Bulletin.
All Points Bulletin to ask what is going on with Isaiah Young. So we have an answer?
Not really, but kind of. Essentially, Travis just says that, he basically was on the Wake Forest roster at one point, but instead, as you said, looked for opportunities, it looks like in Europe. Those fell through, hasn't signed with anyone else, so Travis's expectation is that he's focused on the upcoming US U20 games, and then maybe getting ready for the draft, MLS draft in January.
Okay. Oh, so we'll see if he's on that US Under-20 roster.
Exactly.
If not, that's when we have to start to worry, right?
That's when we have to sound the Isaiah Young, where are you, klaxon?
Yeah.
Slightly different than the Christian Pulisic assist klaxon.
Well, speaking of MLS, we obviously have people watching MLS this weekend. First thing we have is from Robert W. Cross, the boss, who's watching PTFC, which I believe is Portland Timbers Football Club, at Colorado because I'm Rose City till I die and eat #Eurosnobs as snacks. I think we should put an APB out for Robert Cross.
DM says Sounders v Caps, Sounders playoff implications, and no Ladero or Dempsey, which means it's all on Morris to produce.
And this is the race, right? This is Timbers have played a game or two more than the Sounders. Sounders are trying to catch them up. This is, and they're either side of the dotted line, and you want to be above it if you want to get in the playoffs. Clint Dempsey, the news I saw was that irregular heartbeat means he's out for the rest of the season.
It's true.
So it's all on Jordan Morris to produce. I wouldn't bet against him at this point.
Nor would I. Bard's Blonde.
Wendy Thomas.
Yep. LA Galaxy versus FC Dallas on Saturday at my nearby pub. This game has huge implications for the playoffs and the Supporter Shield race.
FC Drunk, I guess maybe going to the same pub, is also
watching
already
at the pub?
LA at FCD because it's a must-win for both and because Dallas could clinch home field advantage and step closer to the Shield.
But
that is a game to watch.
But
right?
more importantly, Kyle is watching DC United versus Toronto FC because DC United could clinch a playoff spot with a win and a New England Revolution loss. We did have someone ask if we had any loyalties regarding MLS a while back. If not obvious, I'm a DC United fan.
Right. Geographical proximity.
Yeah, I'd say a nominal DC United fan, but a DC United fan nonetheless.
Mark Fishkin of the Seeing Red podcast. Mark says he's attending 3 games this weekend. Red Bull New York versus Philadelphia Union and kids U14 and under 11 games.
I asked him which game was most likely to produce a fist fight. He said Red Bull New York versus Philly and the U11 girls game.
Jonathan Holmgren is watching Downton Abbey because I love my wife and it's a good show. Maybe a Downton Abbey starting 11. Maybe in the future. You haven't seen it, have you?
No, I spent all my time catching up on Game of Thrones for the Game of Thrones 11. Now I have to watch Downton Abbey as well.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Yeah, we'll do a combined one.
Is that the show where the white English people are proper and are shocked when people aren't appropriately proper?
That is
okay,
pretty
I
much
just wanted
the
to make
show.
sure. Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Yep, my wife loves like period TV shows, and that's kind of my usual joke with her, which I'm sure she really appreciates.
So does she watch Downton Abbey?
Yes. Oh, yes, she definitely does.
But you haven't watched it with her?
I have not. I just talk loudly in the background about the plot. Which, when speaking of mouths, of loud mouths or big mouths, goalmouth. I got us there.
Goalmouth, yes. So as you may have heard over the last couple of days, we are launching a new podcast, and it's called The Goalmouth. It's not just Taylor and I.
It is not.
It's also George Qureshi from Hannah Magazine, Brooks Peck from Dirty Tackle, and Ryan Bailey from Dirty Tackle. So it's a co-production between TSS, Hannah Magazine, and Dirty Tackle. Here's how it works. Every weekday morning at 7 a.m., The Goalmouth will be released. And in there, you'll get a 5-minute news bulletin with all the soccer news you need to know. I'll put the link to the iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud feeds in today's show notes. We want you to subscribe to The Goalmouth for when we launch on Monday, October 3rd.
Yes, and again, for those who are wondering, not replacing the Total Soccer Show as a daily show. Question, right? Still doing both. So we're doing the Goalmouth in the morning. You're doing it one day. I'm doing it one day.
Yeah.
And then we're still doing the daily Total Soccer Show as well.
And the reason I'm really excited about it is it's because it's 3 independent soccer media entities sort of coming together to produce something that maybe a big soccer media organization should have produced first.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. Because, I mean, I definitely want that a lot of times when I'm like wake up and take the dogs for a walk, that I'd like that kind of 10 minutes. Here's what's happened, maybe a little bit of opinion, but more so just kind of factual stuff without a lot of hyperbole behind it.
Yep, that's what it will be. You download this show in the morning, anytime after 7 a.m., and you'll get everything that we think is like newsworthy that day. Like to paraphrase the New York Times, all the news that's fit to speak into a microphone.
Yes, and then
and soccer related.
To paraphrase either the Onion or the Simpsons, all the muck that's fit to rake.
We'll let other people do the muck raking. We'll just talk about it in the morning.
All right, and I think we're promising that it will be funny 4 out of 5 days, Thursday being the exception.
Is that your day?
That is correct.
Okay. So I'm up first, so I'll be there on Monday. So please find The Goalmouth in iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud or Google Play, whatever you listen to, and get ready for the launch Monday, October 3rd. We're very excited. Speaking of exciting, the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. We have 6 scouting reports.
We have 5 scouting reports
today. I have 6.
Why do you have 6?
I've added one from Twitter.
Have you?
So between us, we have 6 scouting reports about promising young players that have come to us via the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. And the first scout, I recognise his name.
Yep. He plays soccer with us.
He does.
It's Ryan Kinahan, scouting Bruma, the 21-year-old winger for Galatasaray. It took 2 months since Jose Mourinho praised Bruma and said he'd keep an eye on him for Arsenal and Chelsea to join in his pursuit. His suitors now include Man United, Tottenham, Chelsea, and Arsenal. Meanwhile, the Galatasaray winger has a €40 million asking price that's been set up. Ryan says he'll be sure to report back once City buys him for $80 million due to a fax machine rounding error. He also sent us a link to a goal Bruma scored, basically sprinting through the Besiktas defense. They seemed not inclined to mark him, and it was a pretty good goal in the Istanbul derby, I have to say.
Isn't that a big deal to score in the Istanbul derby?
Yes. I mean, it's one of the Istanbul derbies, but yes, it definitely is. And he scored at Besiktas, which is always a difficult achievement.
So Michael Fisk, who asked the question earlier about Sam Allardyce, he's scouting Andreas Christensen, the Danish centre-back at Borussia Mönchengladbach. Michael says that Andres continues to be a first-team starter for Mönchengladbach. He played 90 minutes in Gladbach's 2-0 win over Ingolstadt and in their loss to Barcelona in the Champions League. Even though Gladbach conceded twice and lost the game, Andres had a number of clutch clearances, and that certainly lowered the blood pressure of the faithfuls, ? Yes, faithfuls. That's what Mönchengladbach fans should be called.
Brian Watley, I assumed relating to Tim, scouting Sergio Diaz, who's an 18-year-old Paraguayan forward. Sergio Diaz played for Real Madrid's youth side in the UEFA Youth League and scored in their 5-2 victory over Borussia Dortmund. Castilla coach Santi Solari said of him, he is not a pure number 9. He is a 9 who likes to drop to the sides, drop back, and receive the ball, and that is where his characteristics are best utilized.
Interesting. All right, Chris Bentley. Again, Chris Bentley had a question earlier on. A lot of familiar names on today's show. Chris Bentley is scouting Donny van der Beek. He says the 19-year-old Dutch midfielder featured in yet another young Ajax drubbing of FC OSS. Chris says Lil Ajax, as I love calling them, won 7-0 with Meneer van der Beek scoring twice. It was also reported that he was the Lil Ajax best player. Donny has also been included in the Dutch under-21 preliminary squad for the upcoming matches against Turkey and Cyprus.
Yes, and Chris wrote all this out, and then at the end of the email said, that was really long, and then gave us a too long didn't read, which was Donny van der Beek is good. Final report on my piece of paper, comes from William Cunningham, who's scouting Cameron Carter-Vickers, the 18-year-old Spurs center back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. CCV signed a new contract with Spurs until 2019. And appears to be the third-choice centre-back for Spurs this season. He's making the bench consistently.
So yeah, actually, I called him the third-choice centre-back recently on Twitter, and someone mentioned that Eric Dyer also will drop in at centre-back.
This is true.
But still, he's 18 years old and very, very close to the Spurs first team. Also, did you notice that this seemed to be bigger news than expected?
Yeah.
I was just expecting Cameron Carter-Vickers to be signing a new contract, but it seemed to make waves, maybe for people who'd never heard of him before. Is that why it's such big news?
Yes. I have roll your eyes if you will. I have kind of a conspiracy theory about this, which is that it seems like people wanted to report this story, but there wasn't really information released about it other than there was a photo of him with Pochettino's arm around him signing a new deal. And so I think people needed to fill out the story. And so what do you do with Cameron Carter-Vickers that fills out a dramatic story about him signing a new deal?
Suggest that maybe he's going to not play for America but play for England instead?
And so I saw a lot of that. It was in a lot of different publications. It was, he's still eligible to represent England, although he has played for the United States national team. And then Grant Wall went on Fox yesterday, I think it was, to say he's definitely committed to the United States.
Yeah, there's someone connected with Carter-Vickers had said he's like all USA or something. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it felt a little bit like maybe a story that had been manufactured to get some clicks of like, wait, what? He's considering leaving? And then, no, he's definitely not considering leaving. And
just to be clear, because CCV has played for like the U23s all the way back to U17s, if he wanted to play for England, he would have to go through the whole one-time switch thing, right? It'd still be a whole ordeal and a big decision for him to do it. He can't just casually do it.
Very true.
And he seems committed to the US, he's probably a lot closer to the US starting 11 than he is to the England starting 11.
Maybe? I'm not sure.
Although we did see Gary Cahill play recently.
This is true. That's crazy, but I'm not sure I agree with you. Huh. All right, then.
We'll think on this some more.
Yeah.
All right. The scouting report that we got via Twitter was Mark Ryan, doctor here in Richmond, is scouting Gio Simeone, son of Diego Simeone, who moved to Genoa this summer and has scored in Serie A for Genoa against Pescara. Excuse me?
That a boy, Gio.
That a boy, Gio, yeah. Well, stepping out of his father's shadow. He's already, I think, a better goal scorer than his dad ever was. But it's a really good, poachery sort of near-post run and finish.
I like the idea that one goal means he stepped out of his father's shadow while his father managed to defeat Bayern Munich in the Champions League.
Well, no, I'm saying his dad was more of like a defensive midfielder.
Beckham Bader,
yeah. Yeah, he won't really step out of his shadow until he baits an England star at the World Cup.
Until he gets Dele Alli sent off in a World Cup knockout fixture. That's
easier than you think. So thank you to everybody who sent in scouting reports. If you would like to join the TSS Scouting Network, please go to totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. All the information will be there, and you'll be supporting the show and helping us make many more for many years to come.
And if you subscribe...
TSS will go on forever, I assume, right?
Yeah, forever and ever. Even if we're not here, it just continues on. The mics continue to record. If you subscribed recently or a long time ago and you're ready to get your scout, send us an email to contact@totalsoccershow.com with the subject line itchy feet or something involving itchy feet, which only recently did I realize was weird and I didn't know the explanation for, and now I do. Thank you, Daryl. Let us know any information about maybe a player a club, a country, a nationality, anything that you'd like to be incorporated into your scout, and we'll take it from there.
We can pretty much tailor it to what you need, unless you ask for something that doesn't exist.
Unless you ask for a Spurs Academy player. I think we've assigned all of them at this point.
There are we have a special scout who's in charge of just finding new Spurs Academy players.
Yeah. I think Spurs lead the way in most Academy products assigned. It's Spurs and Liverpool.
It's Spurs and Arsenal, actually.
And Liverpool. Liverpool up there, too.
Oh, all right. But there are always more available.
Yep.
TotalSockShow.com/subscribe. All right, Taylor, we're about to break for the weekend. We'll be back here on Monday. I'll be back even earlier on Monday with the Goalmouth at 7 a.m. Until then, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again after the weekend.